UFC London, Draftkings has released the salary so we can take our first look. You can call me Kunith. Let's make some money this week. Last week was excellent. We got back on track. A lot of you guys did well. Some of you guys had your biggest wins yet. Called some great spots like Li Jingliang by knockout, Matt Schnell by submission. Herbert Burns was this close. The biggest downfall of last week was Brian Ortega's injury. That was ridiculous. But nevertheless, we look forward and we carry the momentum that we were able to capture into London. So this week we got London on the track. London Tipton is in the lobby and Muhammad Mokaev is at the top of the slate. He's fighting UFC newcomer Charles Johnson this week. Muhammad Mokaev is the real deal. He doesn't have many pro fights, but this man has more amateur experience than your search history. And at only 21, you have to be impressed with the skill set. He's great everywhere, and I hope the UFC continues to feed him guys like Cody Durden and now Charles Johnson, so we can see him grow and mature and eat on his way to becoming an elite fighter and maybe the guy that rules this division for a while. In his UFC debut against Cody Durden, he landed only 2 strikes, and that was enough to drop him, and then he was able to cinch up a guillotine. He did that all inside of 60 seconds. Madness. I don't think that he replicates the same kind of performance this week because I really don't think all that highly of Cody Durden. I didn't think that he was going to smoke him the way that he did, but in hindsight, we should have saw that coming. But I think that Charles Johnson actually pushes Muhammad Mokaev early in this fight. I still think Mokaev is undefeated after Saturday, but I don't think that Charles Johnson is just going to fall over and get finished in the first round. And I don't think that Charles Johnson is going to gas out, but I do think that Muhammad Mokaev is going to figure him out the later that the fight goes. And there's a lot of things at play here. Like, for example, he's only 21 years old, and he's not like a Chase Hooper 21 where he's got that little baby strength. He's in peak physical condition. On top of that, he's going to be in front of his home crowd this week. His opponent's making his UFC debut. The jitters might get to him, and I think that he's the much better grappler, and he's going to take over again in the second and third round. And one thing that I don't really love is that Charles Johnson is super tall for the weight class. He's 5'9". Like, move up, bro. You see some of these guys at flyweight that are really tall, like Matt Schnell, who that's a badass, by the way, or like Sue Maderji, who just fought, rest in peace, who are big guys for the division, but don't take punches all that well, and you have to imagine that a lot of that just has to do with the weight cut. So for DraftKings, I think that Muhammad Mokaev in your cash games could make sense, but it's really hard to say because he is really expensive, and this week you have a lot of underdogs that don't look that great. Last time the UFC was in London, the favorites dominated. I think we could see something similar here, a lot of home cooking, and not just because they'd get the nod from the judges, but because, I mean, they got the energy from that arena. So with limited underdog spots that look good this week, I do think that you need to tread lightly. I think you need to be a little bit careful. Muhammad Mokaev is the pick. It's going to be inside the distance, but I don't think I can get here at this price. Next at 9,400, we have Nathaniel Wood. He's fighting Charles Rosa this week. There's 2 things that I'm not going to do this week. One is I'm not going to put a single dollar on Charles Rosa, and 2, I will not let Nathaniel Wood anywhere near the lineup. He's going to win, but I don't care who you know inside. You're not getting in, Nathaniel. Not in my lineups, and it's because there are a few things that you need to consider at this price. The way I see it, he has to score more than Muhammad Mokaev to be viable. Not only that, but he has to score over 100 DraftKings points because of how favorite heavy this card is. I don't think that he's going to do either of those things. I think he'll throw a lot of strikes. I think he'll mix in some wrestling while Charles Rosa flops around on the ground the way that he does, but I don't see him putting up more than, say, 90, 95 points, which at this price and at the rest of the slate, it's not going to be enough. As a straight betting opportunity, I really like the youth, the output, the technique, the takedowns. I like the prospect this week. The pick for me is Nathaniel Wood by decision. Next at 9,300, we've got Molly McCann. She's going to be fighting Hanna Goldy this week. Meatball Molly is going to bring the heat in this fight, I guarantee it. Her aggression, pace, toughness, cardio, takedowns, they all make her a lock this week. In her last fight, she recorded one of the very few knockouts in women's MMA this year over Luana Carolina with a spinning back elbow, which was nuts, and she did that early in the 3rd round. Now, I bring up the time in which that happened because at that point, McCann had already had 85 significant strikes landed, but she was surely going to land a lot more, and in all of her UFC wins, she has landed over 100 significant strikes. So let's think about that for a second. 100 significant strikes on DraftKings is 40 DraftKings points. A decision win is another 30 DraftKings points. So realistically, Molly McCann has a floor of about 70 points this week. This doesn't include the takedowns that she's going to get. It doesn't include control time, additional strikes when she does break 100 significant strikes, and a potential knockdown here because Hanna Goldy does get hit a lot and she was knocked down by Diana Belbizia. That's unforgivable. So if her floor is 70 points and you need another 30 points, realistically you can look at that as 2 takedowns, about 2.5 minutes of control time, and around 30 significant strikes. I think that's totally on the table, and when you look at her UFC wins, she's averaging over 97.5 DraftKings points. She's going to be low owned. She has one of the best matchups on the slate. I think that I've told you enough. The pick for me is Molly McCann by decision. Next at 9,100, we have Marc Diakiese. He's fighting Damir Hadzovic this week. Marc Diakiese ragdolled Vyacheslav Borshov in his last fight. We saw that coming from a mile away on this channel because we know that Diakiese is solid in all areas of MMA and Borshov is one-dimensional. I think that Hadzovic is one-dimensional as well, carrying with him a measly 37% takedown defense. Marc Diakiese is going to be able to get him down at will, and I think that he gets a submission in this fight, which you'd probably get some pretty juicy odds on as a prop. And I say that because our guy Marky D has only recorded 1 submission in his entire pro career, so look out for that. I think that Marc Diakiese also has the striking advantage here. If he wanted to, he could just cruise to an easy decision on the feet, but keeping this fight standing would be the only way that he puts himself in danger, and I think he knows that. Diakiese has been around for a while, so he's probably smartened up, he's matured as a mixed martial artist, and the guys over at ATT know damn well that the path of least resistance this week is to get Hadzovic down on the mat. And to go a step further, he won his last fight against Vyacheslav Borshov with 11 takedowns. He was ragging him all over the place. He probably can't wait to put together another performance like that. So don't be surprised if he gets him down early and often and goes off on DraftKings this week at 9,100, going maybe a little bit under the radar. I think that him and Molly McCann can actually outscore Muhammad Mokaev and Nathaniel Wood this week. Watch out. And the pick for me is Marc Diakiese by submission. Next at 9,000, we have Jai Herbert. He's going to be fighting Kyle Nelson this week. This card is a card where favorites are probably going to dominate. And I'm putting the warning label on it now. Kyle Nelson is not very good. Not very good at all. But Jai Herbert is top 5 least trustworthy guys on the entire roster. He's 1-3 in the UFC. He's been finished in all of his losses. He has talent. His striking is dangerous and it's fast, but I feel like he loses focus. Mental lapses in the octagon leading to breakdowns in defensive fundamentals. In round 1, he seems so sharp and engaged, like he could fight with anybody. Then by the time the first round's over, he's not the same guy. He starts getting touched up and he's done. He hasn't proven to be incredibly tough. He can't wrestle. He can't defend a takedown all that well. He doesn't really look for any of his own. Actually, he doesn't look for any at all on his own. And on the other side, we have Kyle Nelson. I don't know, man. He has not looked good in recent years either. He eats a ton of shots. I struggle to view him as UFC caliber. He has had some tough matches against guys like Billy Q, Diego Ferreira, but losing to Matt Sales in the way that he did, inexcusable. So I'm torn because on one side you have a wet noodle in Jai Herbert, and on the other side you have Kyle Nelson who can't do anything right. But the issue is Jai Herbert after the first round might not be able to do anything right either. So I'm going to take the first underdog shot here. I don't feel great about it. I will take Kyle Nelson to win this fight though. I believe it would be a submission late in the second or the third round. If not, unfortunately, it would be Jai Herbert inside of the first round, but this is a big price to pay for a guy with Jai Herbert's track record. So the pick for me in this fight is Kyle the Monster Nelson by submission. And if you haven't already, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment something for the algorithm. You guys always give the algorithm hell. The algorithm is waiting for one of you guys to land an illegal knee, so I'll stop the fight, but I'm not stopping the fight. I'm Mario Yamasaki to the BS. Next at 9,800, we have Paddy Pimblett.
Fat bastard.
You would think they'd give my man a picture on DraftKings, but not yet. I guess not yet. He's going to be fighting Jordan Leavitt this week. I think that Paddy knocks this guy out in the first round. This, just like Molly McCann, is a lock in my opinion because we've talked about this in the past. Jordan Leavitt can't strike. Fortunately for Jordan Leavitt, in his last fight, he fought Trey Ogden, who also can't strike, nor was he able to do much with Jordan Leavitt on the mat. In that fight, Jordan Leavitt did a really good job of nullifying Ogden on the mat, manipulating his weight, and he did solid work when he was on top. He is absolutely not going to get that chance this week. I think that Paddy is going to try to bang with him on the feet for as long as this fight lasts. I think he sleeps him in the first few minutes. Paddy throws hard punches, big hooks like we saw in his UFC debut against Luigi Vanderimi. And he really doesn't need to worry about the power coming back because Jordan Leavitt can't strike and Scousers don't get knocked out. And even if this got extended past the first few minutes, Jordan Leavitt has bad cardio. And I think that if Paddy starts to grind on him, grapple on him, he probably finds the back at some point, dominates, rear naked choke. And my just personal 2 cents here, I feel like Jordan Leavitt is okay with losing this fight. And that might sound weird, but I truly think that if he got knocked out completely, like if he was flatlined, slept, starched, I think he'd be fine with it. Like, I don't think he looks at this fight as a fight that he absolutely has to win or a fight that he really wants to win. I think that they're just letting him get fed to Fat Boy Paddy, and it's going to work out. So the pick for me in this fight is Paddy Pimblett by knockout. Next at 8,800, we have Nicolas Dalby. He's going to be fighting Claudio Silva this week. Nicolas Dalby has no business being this expensive. This guy is a decision machine. Silva is almost 40 years old, but Dalby is a ripe 37 in his own right. Dalby does not have much of a grappling game. Yeah, he got a lot of takedowns in his debut against Zaleski dos Santos, but I don't think that he's able to hang with Claudio Silva if this fight does hit the mat at all. When you see him perform against Jesse Ronson and he was submitted in just a few minutes of the first round, he was taken down 3 times by Peter Sabata, 3 times by Cowboy Oliveira. I think he gets taken down this week. And I think that Claudio Silva's ancient ass is going to be able to take him down, find his back, and submit him inside the first 2 rounds. We might have a Herbert Burns situation on our hands, though, where he's able to get in a dominant position. We think we're cashing the winning ticket, and then he gasses out. And obviously, he won't gas out as bad as Herbert Burns did, nor do I think he'll cry as much. But in terms of betting and DraftKings, I like the upside. I like the value. I like the underdog in this matchup, and I don't think that a lot of people are going to get there. The pick for me in this fight is Claudio Silva by submission. Next at 8,700, we have Jonathan Pearce. He's going to be fighting Makwan Amirkhani, and publicly, I think there's too much JSP slander going on out there. I see a lot of people talking trash about JSP, saying that he lost his debut to Joe Lozon. How can you lose to Joe Lozon? But look at what the man has done since then. Dominance, and I think that he dominates Makwan Amirkhani this week. Like we've talked about when we've broken down Amirkhani in the past, that frontal choke package and that first round burst does worry me. I think he's as good as somebody could be. But in sport, in MMA specifically, and in betting, cardio is king. And we know with Makwan Amirkhani, for as talented as he is, he really doesn't have a good gas tank. On the other side, Jonathan Pearce has cardio for days, pushes a grappling heavy pace, and I think he could start to rinse and repeat takedowns, and they'll start to come easier and easier as the fight goes on. Technique-wise, I think both on the feet and on the ground, Amirkhani is the better fighter, but the gas tank is going to make all the difference here, and I'm sure of it. For DraftKings, I think that Pearce is being a bit overlooked this week. I expect a lot of people to get on Makwan Amirkhani as a popular dog, but if Jonathan Pearce wins, expect a ton of points. He's been averaging 117 DraftKings points since that Joe Lozon fight. He just needs to weather that early storm, maybe defend a couple of takedowns, get some of his own in the opening round, and protect his neck, and he's going to get the job done. The pick for me in this fight is Jonathan Pearce, and it's going to be by decision. Next at 8,600, we have Nikita Krylov fighting Alexander Gustafson this week. I think this is going to be a fight that divides a lot of people. The Krylov crowd is going to say that he wins because Gustafson is old, he's washed, and that might be true. And the Gustafson crowd is going to think that he wins because he's more talented, a better striker. That also might be true. For me, the difference in this matchup is that Krylov probably finds the takedowns that he'll need, and Alexander Gustafson in the past has accepted bottom position more than you'd like to see. In the past, Krylov has really struggled with grapplers. We've seen that in his last 6 losses. Guys like Paul Craig, Magomed Ankalaev, Glover Teixeira, he got subbed by Jan Blachowicz, subbed by Misha Serkinov. But he has a really good chin, and he hasn't been knocked out in nearly a decade. He looked great in his last fight against Paul Craig before he got caught in the triangle, but that's Paul Craig. We can give him a pass. Gustafson has never been known to have crushing power, and I worry that he's not going to be able to get respect from Nikita Krylov in this matchup. I could see Gustafson giving up some ground, getting pushed up against the cage, and giving up crucial takedowns that lose rounds and put him in bad positions. For DraftKings, this fight is an easy fade for me though, just because when you look at the name value, I expect it to go way over owned. I could see both of these guys having success at different points, and if that happens, that's going to limit the score on each side. So the pick for me in this fight is Nikita Krylov. It's going to be by decision, but for DraftKings, I don't love it. Next at 8,500, we have Volkan Oezdemir. He's fighting Paul Craig this week. Volkan Oezdemir is a big, strong guy. He's hard to get down. He has power in his his hands. We've seen Paul Craig knocked out before. But it's Paul Craig fight week, baby. Paul Craig has been absolutely on fire on a 6-fight unbeaten streak, with 5 of those fights being finishes. Paul Craig at 34 years old looks like he's finally putting it all together at this point. And he isn't the best striker in the world, but in terms of submission grappling, he's probably the best in the division right now. He doesn't have the strongest offensive wrestling, but he can pull guard when he needs to. He can jump on your back in the clinch. He can get you down in weird ways if he needs to. And I believe that he's going to be able to get Volkan Oezdemir down, and he's going to finish him this week. And when you look at their wins side by side, it's really not even comparable. Volkan wins a split decision to Rakic. He beats Ir Latifi. He beats Jimmy Manuwa, Misha Serkinov, OSP. But on the other side, Paul Craig has wins over Kennedy Nzechukwu, Nikita Krylov, Magomed Ankalaev, Jamal Hill, and these are all finishes. Different gravy, babe. So the pick for me in this fight is Paul Craig, and it's going to be by submission. Next at 8,400, we have Mandy Bohm. She's going to be fighting Victoria Leonardo this week. Mandy Bohm is not going to win this fight. She looked terrible against Ariane Lipski, and I think that she really struggles with the physicality this week of Leonardo. Victoria Leonardo has 4 losses as a professional. Let me read these off to you. Miranda Maverick, Erin Blanchfield, Manon Fior, Melissa Gatto. That is ridiculous competition. Mandy Bohm has fought cans up until this point, and I don't think that she does well this week at all. She showed in her debut that she really lacks a lot of toughness and physicality, and I think that Victoria Leonardo is going to be able to overwhelm her this week. Of course, this fight's going to go under-owned on DraftKings. It's women's MMA. It's early on the card. But I think that Leonardo has a chance to put up a really decent score here, so I'm going to keep my eyes on her throughout the week, and especially when we're building lineups in the final picks video at the end. But the pick for me in this fight is going to be one-way traffic for Victoria Leonardo by unanimous decision. Next at 8,300, we have Tom Aspinall, our main event favorite. He's fighting Curtis Blaydes this week. Tom Aspinall might be that dude. He has destroyed everyone that the UFC has put in front of him, and he's seemingly getting better each time. His hand speed and fight IQ are on another level compared to most of the division. I think he and Cyril Gane are worlds above everybody else in the weight class when it comes to just striking. And the most likely outcome of this fight is that he knocks Curtis Blaydes out inside the first round, maybe the second. If he doesn't knock him out within those first 2 rounds, though, is where I start to get concerned while looking at this fight. Aspinall didn't look fresh at all in the second round against Andrei Arlovski. I think he kind of got lucky in that spot. He has not seen later rounds, and Curtis Blaydes on the other side is the best grappler in the division, and he's a cardio machine. If Blaydes is able to get his wrestling going, even if he finds himself on top just once, I think that he wins this fight. Now, Curtis Blaydes has been knocked out before by Francis Ngannou and Derek Lewis, but they're the hardest punchers we've ever seen. But Tom Aspinall might be the fastest that we've ever seen at this weight class. So I'm really torn, because I picked against Aspinall last time and he made me look foolish, but I fear that if I pick Curtis Blaydes this week, Tom Aspinall is going to make me look foolish. But I'm going to do something that I really don't do enough on this channel, is go with my gut, and my gut is telling me that Curtis Blaydes gets takedowns and he finishes Tom Aspinall in the 3rd or 4th round, spoiling the hometown party. So the pick for me in this fight is Curtis Blaydes by ground and pound, round 3, round 4 maybe, but Curtis Blaydes by knockout. For cash games, you're not going to want to stack this fight, obviously, because one of them is going to score really well and the other is not. And then we have our co-main event. We've got Chris Curtis. He's fighting the Joker, Jack Hermansson, this week. Chris Curtis has been super impressive since coming into the UFC. Knockouts over Phil Hawes and Brendan Allen inside of 30 days, then beating up Adolfo Vieira just to turn around and fight Jack Hermansson this week. Crazy guy. I picked him to win in his last fight because of his takedown defense and because of his striking, and I think that's what wins him this week's fight as well. Jack Hermansson has good striking, but he's not a huge puncher. He's a good grappler, but I think Adolfo Vieira is probably better when we saw how he fared against Chris Curtis. I think Chris Curtis keeps his feet, is able to nullify the grappling exchanges, lands heavy punches, and possibly gets a knockout this week. It's hard to say because Jack Hermansson has shown that he's super durable, so I don't know if the Action Man's going to get a knockout this week, but I do think that he has the edge. Plus, Jack Hermansson recently lost to Sean Strickland, who trains with Chris Curtis, so there's good intel there. But what's crazy is that if Chris Curtis wins this fight, is he low-key in the title talk at 185 pounds? Because he would have beaten the number 7 guy in the world. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, and the only other fighters inside the top 9 of the division that aren't coming off a loss are Marvin Vettori and Alex Pereira. After Alex Pereira gets his title shot, if Chris Curtis goes out there and knocks Jack Hermansson out this week, I don't see why he can't be the next guy for the title. Hashtag Action Man title shot. Should we start it if he wins this Saturday? If he knocks him out, we got to take to Twitter. Kunith MMA, make sure you drop a follow. We have to take to Twitter and let our voices be heard. An Action Man title shot. We're going to make them hear it until they don't want to hear it anymore. The pick for me in this fight is Chris Curtis. I don't actually think that he knocks him out, but if we do, we're all over Twitter. I just saw you agree. I saw you nod. But I think that Chris Curtis gets it done by decision. And I'll quickly go through the plays at 8,000 and below. Before I do, make sure you like the video, subscribe, comment for the algorithm. You're running out of time. At 8,000, we have Jack Hermansson. We just talked about him. I don't think that he's able to get it done this week. I think that he gets outstruck. I don't think that he's able to get takedowns. I like Chris Curtis. Curtis Blaydes, I mean, when you look at Curtis Blaydes, this man has put up 173 points before. One of the highest ceilings on the entire card with 5 rounds to work with that grappling upside. Down at 7,900. You never get a price like this on Curtis Blaydes. I think that Curtis Blaydes has always been a favorite in all of his UFC fights, and this week it looks like he's coming in as the underdog. Take that. Victoria Leonardo, I think that she can go out there and really make this an ugly fight for Mandy Bohm. I think that she just roughs her up, beats her up, comes in at low ownership. Again, we're going to pay attention. I don't need to tell you, if you've been watching this channel for a while, how I feel about Paul Craig. Look at the scores. Look at the finishes. Like Drake said once, his pudding tastes like the proof. The Mauler, look, the guy has not won a fight in the last 5 years. I can't in good conscience tell you to play him this week. Makwan Amirkhani, he's worth taking a shot. JSP is not over getting caught, but if he doesn't catch him early, it's going to look really bad. Claudio Silva, don't sleep on the grappling of the old man here. I don't think that Nicolas Dalby is as good as people are making him out to be. I think that Claudio Silva has a real shot here. Jordan Leavitt's going to be watching Shrek with his daughter at home with ice on his head after Paddy the Baddie puts him away. Kyle Nelson, oh, look at him. He looks like he's going to get knocked out. God damn. Damir Hadzovic, I'm not really interested at all. I think Marc Diakiese is better everywhere. Hanna Goldy, there's absolutely no shot that I'm going to play Hanna Goldy. I think that she might even get knocked out. With the way that she just stands in the pocket, gets hit like that, she might be in for a rude awakening in London this week. Charles Rosa fights like 2 kids in a backyard. No matter who he fights, I'm not really interested. And then Charles Johnson, he's really up against it this week against a monster in Muhammad Mokaev. I don't think that Charles is in charge this week. I'm not going to play either of those gentlemen. If you have made it to this point in the video, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And this is your last chance to like the video. Subscribe to the channel, because if you don't subscribe, it's bad luck. I'm not going to tell you where I heard it from, but it's true. Comment something for the algorithm so that we can reach more people and we can grow this community of elite individuals like yourself. If you're new here, every week at the end of the week, we do our final picks where we build lineups. We talk about what we need to do to be successful this week. I'm going to go over a lot of theory stuff this week. I'm excited, and I'll see you there.